hatimaye akifika ataweza kuuza namna gani na kupata faida yake. Kwa hivyo, Bi Spika, mswada na uunga mkono na uweze kupitishwa mara moja, na magavana wetu licha ya kuwa wana majukumu ya kutafuta hela, lakini wasitafute hela hali wanaumiza wananchi, hali weza kumtafutia hela anamfanyia maisha yake yanakuwa magumu mpaka anashindwa kufanya biashara. Asante Madam Speaker, naunga mkono mswada.
Member for Kwanza, Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi.
I'm from a meeting from 9 o'clock. Order. Madam Speaker, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this very important bill by the Senate. Madam Speaker, I think it's just common sense. When it comes to, for example, to finding out, may I be protected from, Madam Speaker, can I be protected from the crowds in front of me? Eh? Order. Get out of my way. Madam Speaker, I'm being engaged and I'm on the floor of the House by the passerbys. So can you call him?
What's your point of
be out of order?
Let me allow Honorable Nyamai as a point of order.
Madam Speaker, is it in order for the Honorable Ferdinand, member for Kwanza, to purport to be giving instructions to other members when you are seated on your seat, Madam Speaker? Is it in order for the member for Kwanza, who has been in this House, I think this is his 4th term, to be the one to control the House by saying order, order, Madam Speaker, when you are seated on your seat?
Member for Kwanza, you are appropriately advised. Don't usurp my powers. You may proceed.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much for protecting me. Yeah. First and foremost, Madam Speaker, it's important that we make...
Lagat, what's your point of order?
My point of order, Honorable Speaker, is it in order for Honorable Ferdinand, all the way from Kwanza, to refer to members as passerbys here? He has said passerbys here. I don't know what it means by that. He should apologize and withdraw that statement.
You may proceed. I didn't hear that part, so you're saved.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, again for protecting me from these hazardous friends of mine. But first of all, Madam Speaker, I want to make it very clear that the vetting of the applicants of license from one county to the other, we want it to be uniform, so that if, for example, one is doing some business in one county, it becomes very easy to move to another county, so that at least he follows the same procedure. Or if he recommends that somebody is going to do business in another county, it must be very, very simple, Madam Speaker, and it be uniform, so that we do not have a case where you find that one issuing license from the other. Secondly, and I think it must be uniform, so that it must be much easier, so particularly for the foreigners who actually maybe come and do business in our country, to do business here, improving the economy of our country, again to make it very easy. For example, if one has to do some business in Mombasa and comes to Nairobi or goes to Kitale, where I come from, it should be the same procedure, so that they can be encouraged. And I can tell you that again makes it easier and makes it very attractive for the foreigners to come and do our business in our country, thereby, of course, improve the economy of this country. So I think this is very important, that the procedure will be uniform. If you do business here and you want to apply for a license, it should be the same way that you could do the same, say in Mombasa, Nyeri, or even Western Kenya. The other thing is that that again protects the consumers. Of course, if you find that the consumer is in this county and is going to do another business, whatever, or he wants to buy things from one county to the and move it to the other county, we want to make it very, very uniform, so that the consumers can be protected. Even the businessmen or women who actually want to do business from here, again, are protected. Other than you find that you go to one county and you find somebody is charging you maybe 500,000 shillings or 200,000 shillings to do whatever business you want to do, or even 20,000 shillings, and when you go to another county, these are different one. So I think this particular bill will be able to assist, so that, of course, Kenya is one. It doesn't matter whether you are in Nyanza, Western, Rift Valley, or whatever, the procedure should be the same. So, Madam Speaker, I just want to say that we must protect the consumers and whoever wants to do that. Thirdly, and very, very important, this, as somebody has mentioned, and I want just to emphasize that, when the procedure is simple, of course, the counties will be able to collect more revenue. And that, again, as we said, will be able to, as they collect more revenue, other than being difficult to do business, because if you do one thing here in the central province, you go to Western, you find the procedure is different. So that, again, discourages the people who are doing business, and therefore, again, that does not develop our country, and they need to develop our country for the future prosperity. And therefore, I want to say that after devolution, and we under one government, let's have everything as uniform in whatever way you look at it, whether it's consumer or just getting licenses or moving from one place to the other. I want to agree with the former contributor who said, again, you'll find yourself, you're driving from one place to the other, from one county to the other, you don't even know the boundaries. And again, you are stopped, say you are now entering this particular county, and so you should maybe pay some extra money on the road or something like that. Again, that becomes very protective, very unnecessary, cumbersome, and people actually will not be able to move the resources from one area to the other. So with those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I support this particular bill, and I hope this House will move it yesterday or today to be able to have it working so that can be able to support the Senate, and things will be much easier for this country, for the prosperity or for future of this country. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Timothy Toroitich, member for Marakwet West.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute on this very important bill. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support the bill, which is the County Licensing Uniform Procedures Bill, number 22, which is a Senate bill. Honorable Speaker, I have read that the intention of this bill is to establish a uniform procedure for licensing by county governments and for connected purposes. Honorable Speaker, when devolution happened in this country, I think, in my opinion, the architecture of devolution was never well thought out, because you find that various county governments, when county governments were given powers to make certain laws, to issue licenses, the disparity in terms of procedures, the disparity in terms of the fees charged has brought a lot of complexities in the business, in terms of business in this country, such that you find that one county charges a fee that is higher compared to another county, in as much as they have that power to determine the fees to be charged through their local finance acts. For me, it brings issue of inequality in this country, in terms, because this is a tax. And when a tax is not uniform, then it becomes difficult to actually to obey that particular kind of law that provides a tax that is not equal. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the records of our courts, there are so many legal battles. There are so many cases in court that have arisen out of cross-border taxation matters, so that you find that the cross-border issue of revenue or collection of local revenue in cross-border, you find that another county is taxing higher than the other county. So, Honorable Speaker, I believe that this uniform legislation will be able to sort out this issue so that it provides a mechanism, a uniform mechanism of charging revenue and issuance of licenses in this country. Honorable Speaker, there are multiple inconsistencies in terms of the regime of taxing of levies in this country. So, Honorable Speaker, I believe that this kind of a uniform legislation will provide a uniformity in terms of procedures that are put in place so that we reduce the issue of inequality in this country. Honorable Speaker, this issue has affected private investors, because if private investors come from outside the country and want to invest, for example, in where I come from, the North region, you find that various counties have different regimes of levying certain charges. Then it becomes very difficult in terms of consistencies, in terms of charging those fees. Honorable Speaker, this kind of legislation when passed, it will ease doing business in those particular counties. So, Honorable Speaker, I support this particular legislation insofar as it sets the minimum or the standard uniform procedure of processing or charging fees, and also sets a minimum procedure in terms of the legal requirements that is required in processing of licenses. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Dr. Gideon Ochanda, member for Bondo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to partly support the bill and partly not to support it. The bit that I want to support is the logic behind it, the practicality in terms of the difficulties we face from time to time in terms of issues of movement of goods, movement of services. I think to that extent there's some good logic in it. But on the other hand, where I may not be very nice, Madam Speaker, there's a problem of uniformity. Every single time, and I think we are over-legislating for counties, and I've said this before, the issue of uniformity, in my view, is unconstitutional. The Constitution and the spirit of the Constitution is that we are diverse. We need to do things in the best interest of the local situations where counties find themselves. So every single time we come up with the legislations that set uniformity, that set standards for, or telling counties exactly what to do, in my view, I think is not very good for the country and even for the House. Uniformity, the Constitution requires that we are separate in as much as we are supposed to be interdependent. We are 48 governments and we offer all manner of services. And it's true, counties exist in some geography. There's county geographies. And they don't exist in isolation. They exist in relation to the others. There's a way how they have to relate with the others. But that kind of a legislation needs to be left for the county assemblies of each particular county government, so that they get to legislate how to relate with other counties, how to relate in terms of how movement of goods and services. So when we do that as Parliament, I think there's an element where we are not getting it right. And Madam Speaker, I think this needs to be checked. It is not the first bill that is talking about issues of uniformity. And again, it's also not the first bill that we are discussing that is trying to set certain things for county governments. County governments are supposed to be semi-independent. They're supposed to work on their own legislations, and they're supposed to work on their own procedures of how to do things. In the Constitution also, there's a requirement that, in terms of how they're supposed to be raising revenue, counties are supposed to be competing in terms of own local revenue raising arrangements. But if we set uniformity for them, that's going to curtail where some counties may want to raise a little bit more through internal revenue generation, and we curtail that, I think there's a problem. And I can, as a matter of caution, Madam Speaker, somebody may run to court to challenge this bill if you don't look at it very carefully in terms of the constitutionality and in terms of the principles of devolution. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Lastly, the Honorable Karemba Muchangi. The Honorable Eric Muchangi, member for Runyenjes, aka Karemba.
Honorable Speaker, it is also right to call me Honorable Karemba. It is my name and it features in my national identity card. Honorable Speaker, I wish to start by first for supporting this bill. It is a very timely proposal that we have a uniform law that governs the way businesses are done across the counties. Honorable Speaker, one of the roles of government is to regulate and to facilitate the ease of doing business in the country. And Honorable Speaker, the government only in the public service is only able to employ around 1 million people. The rest of the employees in this country are employed by the private sector. That is where they have been absorbed. And Honorable Speaker, this law as proposed is supposed to facilitate the ease of doing business. And this is now where it matters the most. Honorable Speaker, for businesses that are young, those businesses that we call small businesses, it becomes very difficult to move around the country selling goods and supplying items. The reason is, if you have a business that is domiciled in Nairobi or that is registered in Nairobi and you want to move your items to counties like, let's say, Kiambu, Kirinyaga, and Chuka, or even Meru, Tharaka Nithi and Meru, you are required to pay licenses in all those counties, distribution licenses. And you find that it is very, very difficult to get resources to pay for all those licenses and still make a margin or profit from these businesses. So you find that most of these businesses end up collapsing or dying as a result of multiple levies that are charged on these businesses. So, Honorable Speaker, this is a very timely proposal, and I believe that everybody should come in and support this bill so that we have a standard or a uniform way of charging levies across the country. So
the object of the bill actually is to facilitate the ease of doing business in this country. And currently, as it is, we find that many businesses and many businessmen and women are finding it very expensive and very difficult to do business, and therefore creating competitiveness in this country. I love the interest that this bill has had across the members from both sides of the House. And if we look at what the members have said, which is what the object of the bill will do, it will ensure that we have one licensing regime that is uniform, because Kenya is one and would like to make life easy and make life become easy for businesses and businessmen. The cost of transporting goods, as it is today, across counties, is a very expensive affair, because as you cross each county, licenses or levies are put on your goods. This bill will ensure that the transportation of goods between counties or inter-counties will be harmonized, and therefore these goods and services that you move, that cost will be, at the end of the day, the consumer will get the goods at a very good price. There is the issue of alcohol and substance abuse that currently, because of the licensing regime, counties are issuing licenses haphazardly to any business, not caring perhaps whether this business is near a school or near a market. And this particular bill has come in handy to a point where we are able now to say we can do consumer protection, so that issues to do with things like alcohol can be licensed within a regime that is acceptable in the community, That is, for example, that these alcohol dens should not be near schools or should not be near areas that, should, that can cause harm to the young children in this republic. The bill also creates a licensing authority, which is a body that will vet the licensing as opposed to individuals to avoid issues of corruption. Some of the members have mentioned how currently getting licenses in various counties is marred with a lot of corruption, and the licensees or the traders have to part with a lot of money before that license is issued, and at the end of the day, even when they trade, they may not be able to recover the cost of doing business. So the licensing authority, as anticipated in this bill, will help in issues to avoid corruption, and where a license is rejected, again, there is a review. That bill was rejected to enable the users or the licensees be able to get justice and value for their money. The other issue that has come out is that the cost of licenses has become expensive to many licensees, and what the bill will seeks to do is to also ensure that any license fee that is imposed on the licensees, before that license is imposed, the license first goes to the county government, to the county assemblies. It is approved before it is implemented. But more importantly, is that there is room for public participation, where the review of these licenses shall be put to shall be given to the participants, or which is public, for them to say whether they agree or disagree and why they disagree on any fee that is supposed to be levied or increased. And that, I think, will help the businesses so that we avoid scenarios like it is today, where a county government may just decide to increase licenses for certain license categories unilaterally, and therefore making the cost of doing business very expensive, or making the cost of doing business in a county unattainable for the licensees. The license duration, of course, is another issue that has come up on the floor, and the bill will seek to clear an issue of the license duration being a calendar year as opposed to being a year from the date of issue as opposed to a calendar year, because some of the licensees perhaps would get a license in September, and by December that license is already expired. So the license duration will last for a year from the date when it is issued. This bill also seeks to ensure that there is electronic, the licenses are issued electronically, and the bill has given the county governments a period of within 3 years to ensure that their systems are in place, so that anybody applying for a license need not to physically go into an office, but can do it electronically, and that, of course, will avoid issues to do with corruption. We also see that the bill will also assist with entities or professional bodies that are licensed at national level, that they don't get double taxation, and secondly, and more importantly, is that there are professional bodies which right now the county governments don't consult before issuing them license. For example, the pharmaceutical businesses, you find quack pharmaceutical businesses being issued licenses. This bill ensures that county governments shall consult professional bodies before any license is issued or before any license is approved for issuance to those professional bodies. That will help us to ensure that the value of goods and the quality of goods and services that we get will be commensurate to what the common mwananchi requires. The bill is also requiring that the quality of goods and services produced are of high standard. The current scenario is where some of the goods that are provided or issued or sold to unsuspecting consumers are not of high standard, and the bill has sought to have the county governments liaise with government entities like KEBS to ensure that the goods that they are going to license will be of high quality and high standard, because the Kenyan consumer is me and you who will need to consume these particular products or goods or services. And again, This bill has ensured that there is protection of consumers and also standardization of the goods that are going to be sold within these various sub-counties. The bill also ensures that this licensing board will ensure that there is they will ensure that there is licensing, there is a uniform way of licensing, whether you want to grant, to renew, to transfer or replace a license. And it will be the requirement of these licensing authorities within the counties to give any comments or any rejections or any comments to the licensee in writing. This is to avoid issues to do with corruption, because as you've heard, many of the contributors today have raised issues to do with corruption. So if communication is done in writing, it will then avoid situations where licensees are told to come to the side and maybe if they do one or two or they bribe, they are able to get licenses. Because if there is any information required, again, the licensees will be given in writing. The other thing that this bill has is the timelines within which a license can be issued. I think the license period has been set to 28 days, and if there is any comments or any requests required by the licensing authority to get from the licensee, again, the time frame within which a licensee has been given has been given, and also the response from the licensee has also been given, so that this license or the licensing regime is free from corruption. I think, Madam Speaker, this bill is coming handy, and it is a very good bill. It is come at a timely manner so that all county governments can conform to the uniformity. There is only one issue that was raised, that uniformity may be unconstitutional. I'd like to say that we have looked at the bill, and for us there is nothing unconstitutional about this bill. With that, I beg to reply. And I wish to request that pursuant to provisions of Standing Order number 53.3 and putting the question to be deferred to another day.
Very much, Honorable Marianne, for ably replying to that bill. Honorable members, a question to be put is therefore deferred to another time, as will be scheduled by the House Business Committee. Honorable members, as per the reorganization, we go back to order number 9. This is resumption of debate. It had a balance of 3 minutes. The member who was on her feet is not in.
Order number 9, the National Land Commission Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 43 of 2023, resumption of debate. Second reading.
Honorable members, it's open for debate. I'll give the first opportunity to the minority leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this motion. I suppose I've got 10 minutes or more. I'm not sure. Honorable Speaker, I'm just seeking your advice. I've got how many minutes? Anyway, let me proceed. I want to start from the outset by declaring that I totally support this amendment bill. The National Land Commission Amendment Bill, sponsored by the Honorable Owen Bayer, the Deputy Leader of Majority. Madam Speaker, and I am supporting this bill as a matter of principle. Matter of principle. Having looked at the section of the Act which is being amended, I can in fact say, without a fear of contradiction, that those sections, both section 14(1), both section 14 subsection 1 and section 15, okay, of the Act were, in my very considered view, unconstitutional ab initio. And why do I say so? Honorable Speaker, whenever Parliament is called upon, and I hope the Leader of Majority will listen to me. The Leader of Majority, I hope you will listen to me, because I'm raising very fundamental issues here that may be of interest to you going forward. So I am saying that, for the benefit of the Leader of Majority, that I am supporting this amendment bill, the National Land Commission Amendment Bill, sponsored by the Honorable Owen Bayer, as a matter of principle. And I've said that now, looking at the sections of the National Land Commission Act that the Honorable Bayer is proposing to amend, I can say without the fear of contradiction that, in my very considered view or opinion, those sections were unconstitutional ab initio. Yes. And why do I say so? Whenever Parliament is called upon to enact laws, to give effect to particular provisions of the Constitution, it cannot be that same law becomes a limitation, becomes a hindrance to the very Constitution or very provisions of the Constitution that it is seeking to effect. Because if you read Article 67 of the Constitution on the powers and functions of the National Land Commission, especially Article 67, sub-article E, Article 67, 2E, where the functions of the NLC are, among others, to initiate investigations on its own initiative or on a complaint into present or historical land injustices and recommend appropriate redress. These are powers that were given to the National Land Commission by the Constitution. The drafters of the Constitution and Kenyans generally gave these powers to the National Land Commission through this Constitution. And then you go to the National Land Commission Act and you find a very, very glaring attempt to, in fact, change the Constitution, if you ask me. Because if the drafters had intended that this function would only be performed within a specified period of time, then nothing stopped them from specifying so in the Constitution. The Act goes ahead at Section 14, subsection 1, to suggest that the Commission shall, within 5 years of the commencement of this Act, on its own motion or upon a complaint and so on and so forth, undertake the function contemplated under Article 67, 2E of the Constitution. Whereas the Constitution has left it open. An ordinary act of Parliament purports to enforce a limitation, a time limitation. What was the wisdom of the House when it enacted this legislation? What was in the mind of the House? Was the House of the view that this historical land injustices would have been dealt with conclusively within 5 years? That the Commission would have been able to deal with all historical land injustices within 5 years? Was that the thinking of the House of Parliament when it enacted this particular statute, law? Okay? My submission is that the House erred. The House made a great error in purporting to limit the time frame within which historical land injustices would be addressed by the National Land Commission. The only remedy that is available, and we are lucky that the courts have not been moved to declare this particular section of the Act unconstitutional. And therefore, Honorable Baya has given us, and Kenyans generally, a golden opportunity to right the wrong that was occasioned through the enactment of this statute law. Because the only remedy really for this ambiguity, the only remedy for this illegality, the only remedy for this unconstitutionality is to adopt the amendment being proposed by the Honorable Owen Baya and allow the National Land Commission to undertake its mandate, to execute its mandate, to perform its function, Article 2 of the Constitution. Because otherwise, if we were to assume that for sure now, going by the provisions of this Act, no more historical land injustice cases would be dealt with, then how would we then want Kenyans to deal with them? If by this limitation under the Act, the NLC would no longer undertake its function under 67(2)(e), then who would then perform that function? Who? If the NLC is now barred from performing that function of 67(2)(e), by dint of the provisions of the NLC Act, then who would then be called upon to perform that function? That's the question we should be asking as a House. Are we saying, therefore, that we go back to who? Because under the current Constitution, no other authority has got that function. Under the current Constitution, no other authority or person can perform that function under 67(2)(e) other than the NLC. It's not the President, it's not the Cabinet Secretary for Lands, it's not anybody else. It's not anybody else. Do you want the Kenyans now to go back to the rule of the jungle and start now squaring their issues physically? That if I feel that injustice was occasioned on me, a land injustice was occasioned on me, and the body which is mandated by the Constitution to do it, to address it, is not able to address it, then what do? Do I square it out with the person who I feel has caused me the injustice? So it is only logical, really. It's only logical that the amendment being proposed by Honorable Owen Baya be endorsed, be approved in totality by this House. And in fact, this process should be expedited. Because as we speak, I know there are cases which are pending before the NLC. Cases which perhaps have come from elsewhere, or cases which they have initiated on their own volition. I know my friend Honorable Karoli Mundi is itching to speak to this. I'll be pleading that we give him time to say something after this, so that I get to know what is it that he has in mind. It should have been from the very beginning, allow the NLC to perform its functions. Otherwise, with those very many remarks, Madam Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I also rise to support this bill by the Deputy Leader of Majority, who is also the very good member for Kilifi North, and my very good friend. Honorable Speaker, this bill, as the Leader of Minority has said, is quite progressive. And indeed, I want to agree with the Leader of Minority that in the first instance, the particular provisions in the law, as it were, were indeed unconstitutional, because you cannot limit what is expressly provided for in the Constitution through statute. And that is what I think Parliament had done, and I believe on hindsight now, because myself and the leader of minority were in that house in the 11th Parliament, was erroneous. And he said it's only fools that don't change their minds. And since we are not fools, as a house, we ought to change our minds and align the statutes to the Constitution. And indeed, Honorable Speaker, in injustices, and I know there are those who are in fear that these particular provisions may give the National Lands Commission the power to look into private land matters and all that. But what is of greater importance to me, Honorable Speaker, is the disposition of public land. And Honorable Speaker, land parcels around the country that have been taken up by cartels who are now taking advantage of the absence of these particular provisions in the law.
我的螳螂拳，你见识过螳螂拳只有一形，让你见识见识少林的十形拳，一样是少林学艺。东院的师傅是怎么教你
What? Otherwise public land. And there are many instances across the country, including in the own country, Honorable Speaker, where cartels have taken a chunk of over 100 acres of land that formerly belonged to the Kenya Forestry Service, subdivided it, and over the years have been trying to sell that particular piece of land to innocent third-party buyers. Honorable Speaker, you can imagine the tragedy that befalls people when you buy land that had titles that you went to the Ministry of Land, searched that land, and found it to be a clean title, only to come to learn later that the particular people who sold the land to you initially ought not to have been legitimate owners of that land, Honorable Speaker. And it is only an independent commission that can fix some of these issues. The rot that has bedeviled the Lands Ministry over the years, Honorable Speaker, is not something that can be fixed by the ministry itself. They need a third eye, and that third eye is the National Lands Commission. And the drafters of our Constitution in 2010 had every reason not to trust the ministry alone, but to create another independent arm, an independent commission in the National Lands Commission to oversight and see what is being done on matters pertaining especially to public land. And Honorable Speaker, I want to restrict myself to the issue of public land because that is where the rubber meets the road on matters to do with the theft of land, Honorable Speaker. And by denying when this Section 14 and Section 15 of the National Lands Commission became redundant or lapsed within the 5 years of the commencement of the Act. Honorable Speaker, the National Lands Commission has been left as an impotent body. They will see today Kimani Ichung'wah grabbing public land. You know it is public land. Because I am in a position of influence, I will get my way through the Ministry of Land, process titles of public land, subdivide that public land, and dispose it off. And the National Lands Commission will do absolutely nothing. Honorable Speaker, it is that we want to correct, and I must commend the member for Philippi for having this bill done. Honorable Speaker, I had a similar amendment bill last year, which I had also done as a private member's bill. And the Ministry of Land prevailed upon me to drop that particular amendment, that they would incorporate it in a bigger land amendment bill that they were processing. And I was shocked when the bigger land amendment bill came, these particular provisions were not provided for. And that is why today I stand to support the Honorable Owen Baya, because he's replicating exactly what I had done in my amendment bill that the Ministry of Lands refused to, or rather prevailed upon me to drop, on the pretext that they were going to bring it together with the bigger bill, which is also before the House, Honorable Speaker, and without preempting debate, Honorable Speaker, I think is a order listed as order number 12 or 13, order number 13. But if you go through order number 13, you realize this Section 14 and Section 15 of the National Lands Commission Act were left out. And that is why I am obligated, because it was originally my bill, to support that, or the bill sponsored by my deputy, because it captures the spirit of what the country wants. The country desired to have a National Lands Commission that has teeth to bite, not a National Lands Commission that cannot act when the people of Kenya are being dispossessed of their land by cartels and thugs who will access power, thugs who will access the Ministry of Lands and corruptly change public land into private hands, Honorable Speaker. We can only depend on the National Lands Commission to correct some of these ills. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I want to support, and I want to ask the National Lands Commission, if and when the House adopts this bill and gives them back the powers that they ought to have, they must move with speed to ensure that all public land, and even in some instances, Honorable Speaker, private land. Honorable Speaker, I have a case in mind, Honorable Speaker, and you have seen it in the news, of some land next to Windsor in Kiambu County, or on the border of Kiambu and Nairobi. A small group of people change ownership of a company of very old men who bought land many, many years ago, decades ago. They corruptly changed the ownership of the company, influenced people at the lands office, changed title, and transfer those titles to other people. And Honorable Speaker, let me say, because these are matters under investigation, I hear there is a senior police officer in Nairobi who purports to be having breakfast with the Deputy President and dinner with the President, and forces police officers to guard stolen land. Let me tell that officer, whether you dine with the President, whether you have breakfast with the Deputy President, whether you have lunch with the Leader of Majority, you shall have no opportunity to steal land from the people of Kenya on account of the office you hold, because you can commandeer officers with guns. This is the injustice, Honorable Speaker, that is being meted out on the people of Kenya over their land, because we do not have this provision in law where the National Lands Commission, those who feel treated unfairly, can run to and have titles revoked. Honorable Speaker, you'll be shocked, that particular case around Windsor, none other than the Principal Secretary in charge of lands cancelled the particular titles and instigated the cancellation of those titles. But because there were policemen and senior police officers involved, they now use their powers in the police to guard goons taking charge of a private land. You saw, Honorable Speaker, the other day, none other than the Minister of Lands herself, CS Alice Wahome, being locked out of her property in Loresho. Goons. Why? Because they are policemen who think that they are a power unto themselves. Honorable Speaker, because that particular officer knows himself, let me tell him from the floor of this House, there shall not be an inch of land grabbed in Nairobi or Nairobi's environs on account of you claiming to dine and wine with who is who.
Sorry to interrupt.
Public land will remain public land. What is private land will remain as private land. I hope Honorable Opio doesn't have land that is grabbed.
Opio Wandai?
Yes, Honorable Speaker, you know for sure, Wandai and land grabbing can't be in one sentence, for sure. But having said that, what Honorable Leader of Majority is saying is very serious, extremely serious. Is it possible, Honorable Speaker, that you could perhaps persuade him or compel him to name this officer? Because I don't think this House can continue to operate in generalities. That officer needs to be named. And if it's not nameable, we need to know who is the force behind him. Because I don't think there can be an officer in the National Police Service who can have power or authority over and above that of the Leader of Majority.
What is out of order?
So can you compel him to name that police officer who is guarding stolen property in around Windsor Hotel. Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Maybe just to quickly respond to the leader of minority. There are people who have more powers than me because I cannot command a police officer. But there are officers who have powers to command those officers serving below them. And that is what I'm speaking. And Honorable Speaker, if the leader of minority was keen to listen to what I said it is a matter under investigation, and I therefore do not want to jeopardize the investigations by naming people.
Majority Leader, I would like also to add that you did not state any name.
Yes, I did not state anybody's name.
Not state any name, so
I said a senior police officer. And I will repeat, it is a senior police officer who has the capacity and ability to command other officers. That tells you it is from the rank of a sergeant, an officer commanding a police station, an OCPD, a county commander, a regional commander, a deputy IG, or an IG himself, but I did not name anybody, and I am not at liberty at this stage not to jeopardize investigations. But once the investigations are completed, I know the owners of that land are preparing a petition to this House. We shall name names, because this administration under William Ruto is not to condone the theft of public land by whoever you think you are, whether you are a police officer, whether you are a chief. Only yesterday, Honorable Speaker, I had to intervene in my constituency where an assistant chief had grabbed land belonging to 130 squatters and subdivided it among us 7 members, Honorable Speaker. And I must thank the area DCC for also quickly intervening to ensure that the people of Ruanyaga get back their rightful share. Honorable Speaker, I was saying once we restore these powers under Section 14 and 15 of the NLC,